Welcome back to Funky Politics, the hardest hitting political show on the planet. Hey, I am DC, your host of Funky Politics. And yes, right, folks, we are the hardest hitting political show, not only on this here radio, but anywhere in the land. I don't care what they say, but we're going to do it right here. And it's usually pretty funky in this place. This is what I call a funky kind of Friday. And man, do we have some funky stuff going on in our land on today, folks. But anyway, we're going to get right to it. Early voting. Let's hit on early voting for a quick second there. Early voting is astronomical. So the numbers I'm looking at now, we're probably going to approach, I think by midweek of next week, we may be at probably close to 55 million voters. Understand what that means. 55 million voters would have voted, and this is just a prognostication from DC, right? Would have voted by, let's say, midweek of next week. And you're talking about all of 2016, 136 million voted by election day. We are looking at unprecedented numbers, and in states that we would think would be probably not as engaged, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Florida, these numbers are out of the roof. And let me tell you, so there's a whole lot of scared politicians around there. Y'all better hit your boy up here on Funky Politics because they're really scared. But I'm going to tell you right now, this thing's going to probably flip real quickly. There's going to be a lot of blue and a lot of purplish stuff going on here pretty soon. No check for you and me right now. Looks like stimulus number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever they want to call it right now, is going to be on hold. I think Speaker Pelosi gave the administration about 48 hours at the beginning of the week to get something to her to say we want to move forward. At least the administration's talking. The majority leader, Senator Mitch McConnell, has said to the White House, let's not do a deal until after the election. I'm afraid if the election turns out, and let's just say there's a massive flip in the Senate, and of course this president, 45, loses, what reason would they have to do anything? And so I would love to have this thing done before the election, but let's just say we're going to keep our fingers crossed. I'm not so sure it's going to happen. But anyway, wishful thinking, right? I need my $1,200, y'all. Send me my money. Anyway, on to another thing. Oh, my God. Coronavirus. This thing is not going anywhere. It is absolutely not going anywhere at all. The sad thing about it is I think there's a lot of naysayers out there that they don't believe that the coronavirus is real. Okay, you may not believe it's real. I believe it's real, and there's a whole lot of other people believe it's real. And number two, you've got people who've lost loved ones, friends, and family members who know for sure it's real. Wash your damn hands as much as you possibly can. Wash your damn hands. Look, put a bowl of water in your car and just wash your damn hands, whatever you think about it. Dump the water, of course, after every wash. Wear your mask. Please wear your mask. And most of all, quit with these major parties, y'all. Man, these are super spreaders. Quit doing this stupid stuff, man. Hey, coronavirus is not going anywhere yet. We still need the vaccine. Come on, folks, with this vaccine. Dr. Fauci, I love you, buddy. You my guy. All right, you my guy. Hey, look, on today's show, Theresa Hassler. Oh, my God. This is a creator. She's a creator of the Ratchet Politics show. The young lady, she's wonderful. She's a talker. She's also a licensed attorney in the state of New York. We're going to be talking to her about Ratchet Politics, about politics in general, about black women from her perspective on what this means right now in this flashpoint in time right now. So don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with my very special guest, Theresa Hassler, right here on Funky Politics.
Hello and welcome to R&R on Sports. We are pleased to have with us today Mike Wallace, who is the Grind City Media Senior Editor. Mike, welcome to R&R on Sports.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, man. And I hope you guys are safe and pushing through this, man. Thanks a lot. It's been far too long. I'm glad we finally able to do this.
Absolutely. But Howard, you got to put some respect on this brother's name. Now, he used to do the Heat Index for the Miami Heat. This brother went to the championship 4 times in a row. Now, he wasn't on the court actually before the game and after the game, but he went to the championship 4 times in a row with the Miami Heat. What's up, my brother Mike?
Hey, what's going on, man?
KUDZUKIAN. Check out all your KUDZUKIAN favorites now. Download the KUDZUKIAN app, available on Android and iOS.
Hey, we are back with Funky Politics. I am DC as promised, and guess what? My very special guest, the one and only, the beautiful Theresa Hassler. Welcome to the program there, creator of the Ratchet Politics show. Hey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, let's get into this thing. We got a long time here to talk, sister. I know you got some hard stops you got to make because I know there's a lot of stuff going on in New York right now, and you gotta do your thing up there.
Yeah.
But I want to start with a subject. And I don't know if you're a major sports fan or not, but being from New York, in New York, you got to like somebody up there. Our country and I think a lot of people in leadership have said, hey, look, sports unites us, right? Sports is the one thing that unites us. And to me, that's sad. That's a sad indictment on us as people, why sports has to unite us. But from a perspective, is that saying a lot about us as people? Why don't we address what really is out there, and that is racial indifference or racial injustice versus saying that sports brings us all together when we know that's really a lie?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm not originally from New York. I'm in New York now. It'll be 10 years in January, but I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. So
not St. Louis. Where Fred Sanford from? St. Louis. Fred Sanford. You know about Fred Sanford. Lord.
I do. I know everything about Fred Sanford. And Red Fox. And so, when it comes to sports, my allegiances, there are no New York allegiances when it comes to sports teams here. Okay. But as far as the idea that sports brings, Americans together, I think that, there's some truth to that. If for no other reason, if you think about the fact that for an hour and a half, 2 hours, everybody's sitting down and like literally looking in the same direction, looking right at the TV, looking at the field. So I think in that sense, it does bring everybody together because instead of looking to your left and to your right, everybody's focused on what's in front of them. So I think that there's actually some truth to that for those periods of time, regardless of race or religion or, background or creed, ethnicity, you and someone who you are polar opposite in every sense could both be rooting for the Lakers, right? Or both be rooting for, the Grizzlies or whomever. So I think that's really where that comes from. As far as that being sort of a superficial statement, which I think is what you're getting at, and why are we not talking about unifying around something more substantial? That's that. Welcome to America, right?
$2 million question, right?
The whole, welcome to America. The whole idea, behind America, at least in its founding was you can come here and basically do what you want to do within the parameters of law. You can have free speech, you can have freedom of religion, you can have freedom to assemble. So, we're not really the type of country that has been founded on unification, except for unification around being Americans. So you're always going to have conflict.
Well, and I want to stay there just for one quick second, and that is that even when you look at these sports alliances, let's just say you and I, we are diehard Rams. Well, I'm sorry, the Rams have left St. Louis. Oh, that's right, you guys don't have anybody left in St. Well, anyway, let's call them the St. Louis Penguins. Oh, yeah, that's right. You got a baseball team. So let's say we're big Cardinal fans, right?
Big baseball team, yes.
But even those of us, Theresa, who are able to go to the games, there's still a stratification, right? Because you got tickets that are not, they're not built or based on something for the average citizen. So the average citizen, I think where we're having our issues is right now, and I don't want to throw college out there as the one thing that's the great arbiter in our world that puts you apart from being another racist. But in my opinion, when you don't have those folks who are probably from the moderate to lower stratification in terms of income melding together, then you're probably spinning your wheels. Because, you and I, let's say we're $200,000 earners right now. It's easy for us to kind of hang out because we do some of the similar stuff. But what about those folks below those margins? And I think that's where I want to go just for a quick second in that vein. You get my point?
No, I understand what you're saying. Sure. I think, but I'm going back to the. I guess I was focused on the original question, which is sort of the coming together, right? You could be in your corporate box seat looking at the same game that I'm looking at, on the 50-yard line, or maybe I'm up in the nosebleed section way up at the top, and we're still looking at the same game, but we're having a different experience.
Sure,
right?
That's right.
And so I think that there's definitely in sports, let's be, if we're going to stick with this example, sports is not really a place, aside from what I said, everybody looking and focusing on the same thing, people may be rooting for the same team. you're not going to have the same experience because, again, this is America. And with this neoliberalistic free market economy, you have this idea of if you can afford it, you can have it.
Sure, that's right.
That whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's not my fault you can't afford the better seats, right? You get what you can afford, and we don't. And we have based our economy off of access based off of the individual,
sure,
as opposed to based off of the collective. And so we don't acknowledge, right? We don't uplift. We don't sort of reward people who, based off of our subjective point of view, have not done enough for themselves. And that's part of the problem. So you're gonna, and sports is a business, right?
Sure,
sports
is
not
that's correct.
Community engagement activity. It's a pastime, quite literally. It's a way to pass the time. And you're gonna pass the time in America based on what America feels that you contribute to America. And that in and of itself is the basis of a lot of the discriminatory practices and lending and banking and hiring and firing
sure.
and home ownership, that whole thing.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse. And I guess another part and parcel of that point I was making, or the question is that the NBA just finished up their piece with the LA Lakers being champs. Hey, shout out to LeBron and his stance he's taken. And I guess the way the NBA addressed social justice and killings around the country of black and brown people, black folks, this is Funky Friday right here on Funky Politics, was to introduce this Black Lives Matter piece into that, with the jerseys, with the lettering, with all the branding. And so you and I sitting in the corporate box, well, we didn't get a chance to sit in the corporate box. You and I, who got a chance to get on camera and go into the Zoom piece with them, who could buy a ticket, versus those folks who saw it at home and said, well, I'm not going to watch this because I don't believe in this Black Lives Matter. And I guess that's where I'm kind of going with that a little bit too, is how even the social, the economic stratification, it dropped down with the NBA in terms of folks at home. I'm not dealing with this Black Lives, whereby you and my white friends who are really good earners, we probably could deal with it. Yeah, that's just my opinion. It's not quite as ratchet.
So what you're saying is, and I'm just thinking, I'm trying to find the question. What you're saying is that, regardless of your ability to be, in the bubble and engage in that, whatever that virtual experience that you had as a observer of the game, or whether you watched it on TV, you're saying that the fact that the NBA incorporated the social justice message, even people who could afford to engage chose not to.
Well, no, I think those ones who could engage from a personal standpoint, who are high earners, they probably receive the message a lot better. But those who don't, who probably are at that lower stratification in terms of economics, and I'm gonna call it what it is. Some of my white friends, hey, they wasn't for it. And typically, when you look at it, a lot of them are not for what they consider to be Black Lives Matter and the cause or the movement in and of itself, in the protest. But
that's fine. I mean, and guess what? They somehow the NBA picked themselves up and found a way to go on without your poor white friends watching, right?
Hey, wait a minute now. Don't be talking about my friends now, because we all from the same neighborhood.
I mean, I don't know, but I don't have friends like that, because if I have people like that, then we probably not friends. So they were able to pick up the pieces some kind of way and get over the heartbreak of not having certain people watch, and they still managed to thrive. So, clearly it wasn't a huge bust for the NBA.
It wasn't. I don't think it was. And I want to state it right quick with our athletes, but also our entertainers. Well, just our entertainers in particular. You got LeBron. You got a lot on that side who have been talking a lot about the social justice and how we ought to avail ourselves of the protests and make sure that we're pushing the agenda, because we got to have change. And then you have Kanye. And I look at that as, are we in a vacuum to where all of us have got to understand our humble or our racist beginnings to know that the difference between LeBron's message and Kanye, and let's just say Ice Cube. Now you got Ice Cube with his piece there about, hey, look, I put this plan out to both parties, but the only one that responded was the conservative side, Republican side, the Trump side. And look, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna play ball with them because you guys are not responding. And
So
and I guess my point to you simply is that do we jump in the camp? Do we cut off Kanye? Do we cut off Ice Cube from the barbecue now because they are not with us and our thinking in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement? Do we just say, hey, look, you guys are not black anymore?
well, I think you're kind of conflating because
I don't want to conflate now, but make sure that I'm
well, only because we started out talking about them and their political activities as of late, and then you said Black Lives Matter. First of all, I don't necessarily believe that whatever it is, whether it's Diddy, 50 Cent, Cube, Kanye, whomever, whatever it is that they're doing, I don't think that indicates that they are against Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Or, because to me, I don't think that that's necessarily the same thing. I think those are two different things. I think that you can be, affiliated with a certain political party and still be fully aware of your blackness in America. So I don't necessarily think that what they're doing right now is an indication that they're anti-Black lives. I've not heard them say that, right? Like I've not heard. I don't necessarily merge those two things. So as far as them not being invited to the cookout because they are, seemingly cozying up to, the Trump campaign or to the Republican Party or telling people not to vote. One of the things, and I'll just go back before I even get into my opinion, because my opinion honestly doesn't really matter. I look at it from where are we as a society. Mm-hmm. It almost reminds me of Dave Chappelle in his last stand-up, 846, where it's sort of like, why do we even care? Where do we come in the past several decades that we put so much stock in celebrities and what they do, that as go, Ice Cube, so goes Black America, right? We weren't like that, right? We've become a society, a culture that doesn't think critically. We're not taught to think critically, right? Or to discern information. We have become so obsessed with celebrity culture that we put the onus and the burden on them too much. And so, I like to sort of draw back and think about, why do we even give them so much shine and so much power in these moments? And I'm not going to say that they don't have a certain level of influence over certain people. Sure. But I think that it says a lot about us that we're spending so much time worried about what Ice Cube is saying, who's really just one person, or what Kanye is doing, who really is just one person, as opposed to really focusing on our needs as a people.
Well, Theresa, is it not because they have this major platform? When you've got a Kanye West with millions and millions and millions of people who follow him, he can speak some stuff about Yeezys, and for somebody to go out and buy a $2,500 pair of sneakers, I mean, you got some, I don't know, I've never seen them. I mean, I've seen them, but I've not seen them, right? Or you got a Cube that's got these millions of followers, and these people, they have major platforms.
They have platforms,
but we listen, though, and we hear them, and and I think we ingest that.
Well, I mean, this is media, right? You're in the media, sure. And we do listen. And that's just, and I mean, I'm not saying that I'm divorced from reality, right? Like, we're all tuned into social media, and we all follow certain popular celebrities or trends. So I'm not saying that, but the fact that Kanye has all this money, the fact that people are buying his sneakers, the fact people are buying his CDs, the fact that people may still think that he's one of the greatest, creative artists of all time, he still has less than $2,500 contributed to his campaign. So it doesn't always translate, right? You can't necessarily, people can have a lot of followers. That doesn't mean people are voting for you.
That's true.
Right?
That's very true.
Yeah, that I can listen to Kanye's music, right? Especially, of course, old Kanye.
Not new Kanye.
and appreciate what he's brought to the culture, appreciate what he's brought to the music industry and to, some of the conversations. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to vote for him. And so I think that in that sense, we sort of undermine ourselves by assuming that we really are just sheep. Now maybe you have a few, but I think that that's not a majority of people. And I think that I'm giving you a tangible, I'm not just speaking anecdotally. When you look at the amount of money that he's contributed personally to his campaign, as opposed to how much money he's gotten from contributions, And when they break down the contributions, they don't say from followers, from millennials, from Black people, from Republicans. He has less than $2,500.
Yeah, that's not good.
From
that's
whomever.
Wow.
Right. And so, you know, and the same thing with Ice. Now with Ice Cube, I will say this. I think that he represents, maybe not intentionally, but I think that he definitely represents a segment of Black men specifically, and some Black women in America who for decades have felt as if our needs have not been addressed by either political party. And every time, because of course we constantly have been, you know, it's ingrained in us to focus on just the presidential every 4 years as we put our energy. When we have new elections or candidates, that we're constantly coming to the table or expecting, what are you going to do for us? What are you going to do for us? And so I think this is really just another version of that, something that happens literally every 4 years. You know, back in 2007, you know, a lot of our civil rights leaders were doing it to Obama. You had Jesse Jackson that turned on him. Al Sharpton initially was not for Barack Obama, but he got on board real quick.
Sure.
Tavis Smiley, right? You had all these people. So there's, you know, Cornel West. You had a lot of people who were not rappers, but still people who had some prominence in the Black community who questioned the agenda. It's just what happens, right? But I guess because it's the first time we've heard it from Ice Cube, but this first time we've heard it from so many musicians, all of a sudden it's getting a different level of significance. But it happens all the time. Black people constantly are questioning both parties. What are you going to do for us?
Well, I want to stay there with the point that you made about Black men. So in many of our communities around this country, and let's talk about the large urban areas, there's a significant amount of people that look like me and of the male persuasion who are incarcerated, who are charged on a daily basis with this or that, or rather wrongly or rightly, right? But why don't we see that we ask, well, what are you going to do for us? But the first thing that you have to do is just about go to the ballot box in your local elections. And as you were saying, these every 4 years, I mean, the president, man, we got to get a guy in who's really for us. But most of us don't know that your city council member or your county commissioner or your state rep, state senator has more influence on your day-to-day movement in your local communities than the president ever will. Yep. When do we get that, Theresa? When do we figure out that it's local first? It's local first. Take care of your business on the local level. And I guarantee you, the national level is going to work itself out.
Yeah, well, and I think so that goes back to, again, the fact that, you know, I mentioned over the several decades how we got to this point where we care more about what, you know, the Kardashian is doing as opposed to what, you know, what's going on in our local church, our local civic group, or our local whatever, as far as, you know, who to support and who to vote for. You know, it's not enough for your grandmother to tell you, I fought, you know, for you to vote. We have to see, you know, a celebrity do like a half nude photo with the word vote, and all of a sudden voting registration goes up, right? How did we get there in these several decades? And part of what's happened is not just the celebrity driven culture, but, you know, we have just totally as a country become so disengaged from education. Our education has really taken a turn for the worse. And, you know, just even basic civics, you know, in a real significant way. That's why I started Ratchet Politics, you know, was really as a civic engagement platform, because I realized when I first started doing this about 20 years ago, politics in general, 20 years ago, that there was a huge education and information disconnect. And some of it I think was intentional, some of it not intentional, when it came to candidates and the Black community. And so one of the things is really becoming educated. How do we find out that, you know, Congress makes the laws, the president only enforces them, right? How do we find out about the system of checks and balances? You know, it's really through initiatives like that. And now that we're in this culture where we're stuck in social media and we listen to sound bites and we don't have enough patience to read the whole newspaper article, we have to find creative ways to actually educate each other, especially our people, on how the process works. Because my thing is, I don't have to tell you who to vote for. If you have all the tools, if you have all the information, you're going to vote, you're going to make the right decision, whatever that decision is. And so I think that we have really stopped investing in public education and education in general. And the things that, used to be standard in our classrooms are now, electives, right? The things that used to be a part of the curriculum are now sort of lobbed off in favor of testing or driving up these, what I believe to be superficial, inaccurate indicators of someone's intelligence. And so, we have to pour back into that, because this has been something that we have neglected over several years.
And I want to talk the information, because what I've seen, and I've done politics. Oh my God, I go back to the late '80s and mid '80s in terms of a political spectrum I worked around on both sides, Democrats and with Republicans, mostly Republicans, and of course I got kicked out, but that's okay. That's a whole nother show there. But anyway, I guess my point is, do politicians really want us to have more information, or just enough information to make somewhat of a decision? And this is just an opinion of yours. I'm not asking you for fact-based, but I've seen that on my side in the South a little bit. Less information is better for some politicians than having more information, because then at that point, you get a chance to make a very conscious decision on, do I do this or do I do that?
I think it depends on the person. I think that there's definitely, it takes work to actually break things down, right? It takes intent. And so, I think that it really depends on the person. I won't say that all politicians or all, I'll call them elected officials, are only interested in giving people top lines, coming to you, a few weeks away from the election and making sure you get to the polls. I think that there are truly some that believe in the power of civic engagement and actually giving people a transparent view of what's going on behind the scenes, of actually disclosing their political record, of actually having these tough conversations. But again, it takes a lot of time. And so I think for some of them, they don't want to have those conversations because it would create a sense of accountability, and everybody doesn't want to be held accountable. There's that saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there is something powerful about being in political office, whether you're at a local county level or whether you're in Washington, D.C., representing your constituents in Congress. A lot of people want to hold on to that power. They want to do just enough to continue to get elected over and over again because they can't see anything past that. And so I think for some of those people, it's easier to just give people enough information to have them voted back into office. But for others who really believe in accountability and transparency, who know that it is a right and not a privilege to have this information. That's why you have Freedom of Information Act. Sure. That's why you have FOIL and those other mechanisms, because this information is public. They just don't want you to actually know that it's public. So I won't give,
paint a broad brush, I understand.
I won't paint a broad brush of everybody, but I do think that, there's some politicians or elected officials who they're more concerned with being reelected. And the less you know about their record, when you trust them to go to their legislative body, the better it is for them.
Well, and I want to jump before we go to break, because we got to take a break in about another minute. But I want to go ahead and put at the batter's plate Black women in their influence, not only in our lives, because if it wasn't for a Black woman, none of us who are Black children would be here, no doubt about that, right? But from the racist tropes of the 400s and the racism that our people faced when we got on this in this country, to even present day, where you have a sister who is running as a vice presidential candidate, Black women have been put in a position, and sometimes they are called angry Black women because they are strong advocates or they advocate strongly for a particular position. But I want to hold that thought, because I want to get your ideas, and I'm not asking you to speak for all Black women all over the world, but you have a unique responsibility, as you have your own platform, and you're certainly versed in the issues in our community. But we want to come back. I want to talk to you about that and a little bit more right here on Funky Politics, folks. I got Theresa Hassler all the way from New York City, as they say, with us here on Funky Politics. Be right back in just a second.
Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, one and all, to the little show that we like to call Black Nerd Power BNP if you're nasty. I'm your host, Mr. Richard Douglas Jones, and with me, the co-hosts of Black Nerd Power, Mr. Marcus Seabury.
What's up, my nerd?
Oh, nerd, please. And Ms. Kimber. What's happening, man?
Hi.
All right, first, here is the rage figure.
I love his helmet.
Talking about escapism and like, yo, I'm mad, but I'm tired. Like, is it okay that, like, if instead of going out to protest tonight, I want to sit and watch movies? I'm just like, hell yeah, it's fine.
A quote unquote woke romance that features a character that's not being like objectified for her body, that does not necessarily mean that that book will not have sex in it.
And I think on that note, we're going to end the show.
KUDZUKIAN. Download the KUDZUKIAN app. Available on Android and iOS.
Hey, I'm DC right here on Funky Politics, and I'm back with you with my very special guest, attorney Theresa Hassler, and creator of the Ratchet Politics show, all the way from New York City. Theresa, and I was just kind of queuing up the conversation I want to really start in terms of Black women and their influence on the body politic right now, and how mercy, how they've come from way back to now leading the charge in a lot of our communities, in our state houses. God help us as we get further on down the road. We'll be seeing some governors here pretty soon, right? Let me hear your take on that, on sisters doing their thing right now.
Well, I mean, I think that it's that, I think Black women have in America, always been the leaders. It's just now that they're being acknowledged for their leadership. So I don't think that they're stepping into leadership roles. I think they're stepping into roles that people recognize. But there have always been Black women that have been leaders in every major movement. It's just that they've been behind the scenes, either relegated to being behind the scenes or just, that's where they've been operating. And so I think right now it's not a newness to the power of Black women. I think that it's just shining a light on what I think, as Black people, we've known, right? That Black women are very powerful and natural leaders, decision makers, influencers in every segment of society. I think that, of course, with everything that's been going on, during the pandemic and even before the pandemic, with the police brutality and everybody really, and when I say everybody, I say everybody in America really spending a great deal of time now reflecting on the histories of racial discrimination in America. I think that a lot of attention is now, or I'd say the light is now being shown on Black women in a new way. But I pause with the idea that Black women are doing something new, because we're not doing anything new. We're just now getting, I think, the recognition that we haven't had before. Part of the reason why I believe that, race and Black women is now taking center stage is because in the midst of the pandemic, after the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, what was going on was everybody in America, for the most part, was sitting at home. We'd already been sitting at home for at least a couple of months.
Sure.
And, you had this sustained sense of stillness and maybe reflection, maybe depression, maybe frustration. And for the first time in years, this was definitely not the first time police had killed a Black man in America, but the movement was sustained. It was just one of the the protests kept going and it kept building momentum. I'm from St. Louis, we got Mike Brown and,
oh my God, yes.
You have, Trayvon Martin, you have, in New York, you have Sean Bell but this one just kept going. And the reason it kept going was because we didn't have the usual distractions that we have. Right?
So there was a captured audience right there, because we were sitting at home. We were like, what the hell did I just say?
And we were sitting at home with our emotions. It was a lot of things that were built up, that had been pent up, especially for Black Americans. And so this was just the perfect storm of, not being able to have these other outlets to express our frustration, and it all came out in that moment. And so a part of what happened in that moment too was a broader, call you'll see in different companies. If you work for a company or a corporation or a nonprofit or government agency, now there's this call for diversity and inclusion. How can we be more equitable? I can go to, a website. I can go to Amazon.com, and in the corner it'll say Black Lives Matter, right? It's like now it's this thing.
This new awareness, right? The new awareness on their part now all of a sudden.
It's an awareness on their part, but it's still, I won't say it rings hollow, but it sort of does, because now it can be, capitalized on. It's just sort of, now it's a moniker. So in any case, go back to the original point. The recognition of Black women in their movement. When you think about what happened to Stacey Abrams a couple of years ago, when you think about when you think about Anita Hill from, oh my gosh,
in the
30
80s.
years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And or 25 years ago rather, and all of a sudden there's this eye opening that people are having, that, oh my gosh, not only are they a part of the Black community, but they really have been sort of pressed down. So it's interesting to see this illumination.
Well, with the illumination, I want to bring your memory, bring you back to a point here, and I want to stay right there with Black women, because I think a lot of this, for those of us who are very familiar with African American history, Black history, you look at the Mamie Tills and having to come out and to show her son. You look at Jeans, Mrs. Jeans, about her son in Dallas, right, where the officer came into his apartment and killed him. You look at Tamir Rice's mother, who's come out. You look at Trayvon, all of these Black women, and then now you look at Breonna Taylor's mother, Mike Brown's mother, George Floyd is calling for mama, right? And so again, we go back to these sisters who have held this damn world together as glue, right? And to me, that's just a lot of pressure on Black women, right? Because now we're looking at you now, Theresa. We're looking at you now to get, whether you're a Biden supporter or not, we're looking to you to take the Democratic Party to the next level, or to take these Democrats over the finish line. Not white women, we're looking at Black women. Because with Black women, they're hoping that they bring Black men and they bring the Black family with them. Not agree?
Well, and like I said, and that's really what's always been going on. I mean, you gave us some experiences when you think about Coretta Scott King.
Sure,
you think about the widows, you think about the mothers.
Betty Shabazz, yes.
Betty Shabazz, you think about the women whose names we don't even know, yes, whose babies were snatched from them as soon as they came to America. Whose husbands were lynched, when they're on the plantation, or who were sold away from their kids and their families. So, the trauma that Black women have experienced in America, just being here, and having this experience, has been enormous. But I do still believe that, what is it that you constantly hear people talk about? My grandmother used to say, well, my grandmother told me. Yeah. Well, my mother told me. Yeah. The power has always been there. The power of Black women, the power of the Black mother, the power of the Black friend, the Black whatever, has always been there, because we're constantly referring back to the Black women in our lives, whether it's something they said, something they did, something they didn't do. And so, I think that, it's good that Black women are getting, illuminated for the power that they've always had. I do. The way you framed it, though, I think that it's good, but I think that there's a tendency to be so dismissive of moments in time that don't work out the way people think they're going to work out.
Sure.
And so we are a throwaway culture. Right. This is, we're a throwaway culture. And so the moment that, so I hesitate when you say that the pressure's on Black women to save it's sort of like,
that's what a lot of pundits are saying.
And I know, but that's part of the problem, because when you have a throwaway culture that we've become, if something were to go wrong, or you perceive something to go wrong, right, or you perceive something to come up short, or you don't get what it is that you thought you were going to get, then now you've put Black women in this capsule where now they can all be thrown away.
So now you can assign the blame to, well, they didn't do what we wanted them to do. Really?
Exactly.
I want to pivot for a minute, and I'm not leaving Black women because this is all about how we allow ourselves to look at the revelation. We cannot put that kind of pressure on them, but now there's some other pressure out there now, and I want to pivot just for a second because I know you were deeply involved with this. The 2020 census. Oh my goodness! Officially, the census was supposed to end about October 31st, so the president could report, and so they could report to the president by the end of the year. The numbers in our country, which of course, the census every 10 years, we have to have an actual count of citizens. It's in the Constitution written. We have to have counts of our citizens.
Section 2.
Yeah, but Harold, what happened, Theresa? They ended it early. They said, well, we counted enough people.
So this is what happened. So, like I said, Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution talks about the census, and it says that every 10 years, it's been going on since 1790. Every 10 years, the states shall take account of their population for the purposes of assigning seats to Congress. Or let me deviate. Congress is bicameral. So Congress is not just one house. Bicameral is the Senate and the House of Representatives. So for the purpose of assigning seats to the House of Representatives. And so that's actually written into the Constitution. And so you've had these amendments over the years. And so I think it's title, I don't remember what title it is. I want to say Title 13 of the U.S. Code. 9 months, no later than 9 months after Census Day, the Census Bureau must deliver to the president the total count, right? So that the president can decide which states get this many representatives. Okay. Census Day, ever since 1940, I believe 1940, 1950, Census Day has been April 1st. And Census Day basically is like the day that the census starts, essentially. That's why when you filled out your census this year, it keeps referring back to April 1st. And so 9 months after April 1st is December 31st. So in a non-pandemic year, which has pretty much been every year, the census must be delivered no later than 9 months after April 1st, which is December 31st. So that the president at that time, their role is to basically determine how many seats each state gets in Congress. Okay. And so now we're in a pandemic, and, things started shutting down around March, but the census was already printed up. It was already getting set for distribution. And so now everybody's in the house. You don't have people knocking on your door. People can't access it the way they used to. And so they extended the deadline, usually in order to get the census wrapped up into the president's desk by December 31st. The census usually ends sometime in the summer, late summer, like maybe July, August is when the census deadline occurs. Census Bureau has a few months to crunch the numbers, get it to the president. Now we're in a pandemic. So they extended the deadline. This is like back in March, April. They extended the deadline to October 31st to give people an opportunity to fill out the census, right? So it was extended. The Census Bureau said, if you give people until October 31st, there's no way we can get this to the president accurately by December 31st. The president won't get it until maybe February, okay? Now, presidents in election years, new presidents are not sworn in until January.
That's right.
Okay. And so this administration realized, I don't know if they realized it, if they had already been thinking about it. So people had already been told around March, April, you have until October 31st to fill out your census. This president in July issued an order that said, I want the census concluded by September 30th, because he wanted to get those numbers by December 31st. Right? He wanted to get those numbers while he was still in office.
Sure, that's right.
Because no matter who wins on November 3rd, he'll still be sitting there on December 31st.
That's correct.
And so he still wanted to be able to apportion seats to Congress without letting the next president do it, even if it meant the Census Bureau having some inaccuracies, even if it
Undercounting.
meant certain populations that are usually hard to count weren't included, right? He pushed the date up because he was determined to meet that December 31st deadline because he wanted to decide how many seats each state got to Congress. Now, why did he? And so then, of course, you have all this back and forth. The date kept switching because you have these, it was, it went to court.
Yeah, lawsuits,
Went to
that's right.
court, changed, went to court. So it was determined that the courts could not overstepped and the initial court overstepped its jurisdiction, and that the president could decide when the census was over. So then it ended October 5th. But then you have to ask yourself, why was he so determined to still have that power to apportion? Because if you recall, when he was first elected, he was trying to get a question on the census about immigration.
Sure.
There's never before in the history of the census been a question about immigration. In the Constitution, even though there have been different iterations, of course, and amendments, from 3/5 of a person and, all these, recognition. But where we are now is it's everybody, and there's no question. It's literally what I call taking attendance, right? So
That's
it's
right.
not it has nothing to do with your immigration status or race. It's really just who's here.
Well, let me
Raise
ask you
your
this.
hand.
Is it possible? Let's just say January 20th comes. Well, November 3rd comes, and we've been told, November 4th comes that morning, and we know who the president is. Let's just say we know that. Let's say it is Joe Biden and the vice president's Kamala Harris, right? Because of what the Constitution says about the 31st of December, is there a possibility that on January 20th at 4:30 p.m. or because at 12 o'clock, I think he's not the president anymore. So at 12:01, that President Biden at that time, can he sign an executive order or can he do anything to undo what the president, let's just say he decides on January 2nd, he wants to go ahead and say, hey, the apportionment to Texas will be 15 additional seats versus
No, that
nothing
would
that can be done.
be a constitutional child. He couldn't.
Wow.
No. Like I said, the Supreme. So this is why you have to understand the branches of government.
Oh,
The Supreme Court
Yes.
determined. The Supreme Court just said.
Yeah.
Right. That's the highest court in the land.
Yeah.
That's the check and balance of our government system. The Supreme Court said that the president could, end the count early because Title 13 said you got to get about December 31st. And even though we know we're in a pandemic, whatever, I didn't read the decision, but that was the Supreme Court decision. So, right. So no, he's not going to do that. And I don't think no president before has done it. And that would never fly. That wouldn't fly with anybody. So going back to the reason why the current president wanted it, he was trying to get. Usually the questions for the census are done about 2 years before the census is printed. He wanted to get an immigration question on there. It went to the U.S. Supreme Court. They said you can't do that.
That's right. He lost.
And but he was still determined to figure out who was undocumented. And so what his goal is, and I don't think that it's really been resolved by court, but I know there are definitely some lawsuits about it. What he's wanting to do is get those numbers by December 31st, figure out a way through the Census Bureau to quantify how many of these people are undocumented, even though there's no question about undocumented. Figure out how many people of these are undocumented, subtract that number of people, and then apportion seats. So states like California that have a lot of undocumented immigrants, probably one of the highest percentages in the country. He does not like California. He wants California to have less seats in Congress, right? And so let's say in California, you have 50 people that filled out the census, and 10 of those people are undocumented, right? Or they calculate 10 may be undocumented. Then instead of California getting seats based off of a count of 50, they're going to get seats based off of a count of 40.
But let me stop you. Doesn't that hurt him in some of the red states? Like you got Alabama, you got Mississippi, you got Arkansas, you got Tennessee, you got Florida, you got South Carolina.
The total population count. So if you look at these populous states like California, right? And again, the census is the count of the United States, but they also break it down by states because he has to apportion, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not necessarily going to hurt those states that are less populous, and it's not going to hurt those states that they assume to have less undocumented immigrants. It's
But
not
it
going to
will hurt
those.
California. It will hurt
It will hurt
New
states
York.
that it'll hurt, but there are more in California than New York. But it'll hurt California, New York. It may hurt like Minnesota. It may hurt other states. Now the thing about congressional seats is it's always 435.
Yes.
No more, no less. So if California loses one, that's not going to go to 434. Another state's going to gain one.
That's right.
Right. And so that's really his whole goal. Now, will he be able to do that? We don't know. There's going to be a lawsuit about that too. But that's why he's so determined to have the power to apportion these seats.
Let's play devil's advocate a little bit, or angel's advocate, as some of my church members like to call it, versus devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little funky politics. Let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about some of these races around the country. What I've seen from 538, Nate Silver, and I think Nate Silver's thing is probably the gold standard in terms of making calls on particular races. And I have no issue with Nate. I think he does a great job. There's some other people. The Sienna poll out there I think is pretty good as well. So the House looks like it's going to be safe to stay. The president believes that the House is going to be flipped because of Speaker Pelosi. I don't know where he gets that. But anyway, let's just concentrate on the Senate. Places like Arizona, you got McSally and you got Kelly out there. Kelly's raised a ton of money. I think his numbers have flattened a little bit in terms of percentages, according to some of the polls, looking at about 45%. What's your call on that race? Do you think McSally will pull it out? You think, and they're saying that there's this quiet number of Republicans that's in Arizona that may come to the polls on election day that'll help her pull it out.
I mean, I think Kelly has a really good chance.
Yeah.
I think Kelly has a really good chance for a few reasons. You know, Kelly, first of all, was an astronaut.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Military.
Yeah.
You know, based off, you know, the tragedy that occurred with his wife.
Yeah.
You know, she's not dead, but you know, she was shot, and disabled. I think that he has a really good shot in Arizona. I think that when you look at these states that could, where you could gain more Democrats in the House, I think that you're looking at, again, what happens just every 4 years. There's a referendum, right, on the current administration, and his base is getting lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
And so some of these states, and then you add to that, and part of that is because of the pandemic. And so I think that some of these states look at the handling of the pandemic. This is something that's affected everybody in some way. Either someone knows someone who passed away, or you know someone who knows someone, or your job was affected, or your kids have been affected, or your health has been affected. And so this is one of those things that, at the beginning of the pandemic around March, I was calling it the great equalizer, because, nobody could escape it. Rich people were dying and poor people were dying. Right. Before the numbers came out, white people were dying, black people were dying. Of course, we know black people were dying, or experienced more deaths, but that's part of, our healthcare system. But it was the great equalizer. And so this is one of those things that's touched everybody. And so people have had to sort of pull back and realize after months, how has he handled something that's affected my life in some way? I could be a rich New York City Manhattanite, and I decided to move to Connecticut. I don't want to live in the city, whatever. And then real estate goes down, and then businesses start closing. And so I think that in these House races, I think that it's definitely they're going to be more close calls than anything. And I think that for the states that do go Democrat, it's not going to be a landslide necessarily, not even in South Carolina with Lindsey Graham. But I do think that because we are in this unprecedented time, something that's affected everyone in some way, that you're really going to see a referendum. But aside from the House, I'm not really concerned with the House as much. You have to look at the Senate, and because the Senate, you look at states like Montana, which really have a tradition of going either way. Montana could really make all the difference in what happens in Congress. It's really, to me, it's about gaining Senate seats more so than gaining more House seats.
And I want to stop you right there because before we I gotta get out of here. The state of Mississippi, you got Mike Espy down there against Cindy Hyde-Smith, and as of late, Mike got about $4 million into his campaign. He's really stepped up his marketing piece. He's got a lot of stuff on the radio, a lot of stuff on TV. Handicap that race for me. You think he'll put it out? 37% of residents in the state of Mississippi are black folk. I will, and that's the largest number in any state in this country, the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. No, I think it would be I think it might be a squeaker, but I think you could possibly pull it. I know you got to go, but I want to bring up one point that you made in your introduction. You talked about the stimulus, and you were saying that you really hope that it happens before Election Day, because if Congress does go blue and the White House goes blue, that you don't see it happening because you don't know why it would happen. And I want to know why you think it wouldn't happen.
Well, number one, I don't think the ones who will be losing. I don't think that. Let's say Mitch McConnell loses. Let's say Cory Gardner out of Colorado loses. Let's say Jonah Ernest out of Iowa loses. Let's say that John Cornyn out of Texas loses. I mean, what is my? I'm a statesman anyway. I'm considered a statesman in my states anyway. What do I need to do to help pull the body politic together to help the next administration? I mean, to me, just simple, stupid politics is all it would be. That's the only thing I would say. Nothing from a policy standpoint, but just I'm a loser now, and that's just all it is to it.
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, I think that for a lot of those Republicans that have been, silenced or who have been on the fence or who decided that they don't want to vote on the HEROES Act, it really is the ones that have actually considered it. It's really about, how will this affect my reelection, right? How will this affect my constituents? I need to bring something home, right? Then you have McConnell, whose message is, this is all, pork. It's all going to go to these states with basically black people. That's basically what they're trying to say. They call them blue, but it's basically black people. I think that after the election, if these people will lose, I think that one of the things that will, one incentive that they will have is what people are missing from the piece between the back and forth between Pelosi and White House, and especially McConnell, is the funding of states and localities. Yeah. A huge part of the HEROES Act that people, don't realize is there from that came out of the House was more funding the states and localities. And every single state budget is floundering, to say the least. Programs are being cut. Every government-funded program, healthcare, education, school funding, everything is being cut. And the HEROES Act, the version that came out of the House, as opposed to whatever the White House is proposing in the Senate, the HEROES Act is the only one that actually would give money to the states and to the cities. And so I think that from a statesman's perspective or stateswoman's perspective, even if I lose my race, when you look at the economy in your home state, the politics hopefully will take off those blinders
and come back local,
right? And you will have the incentive to actually infuse that money back in, because what good is it going to do? You're not going to move to another country.
No, that's true.
You're still going to have to go back to your state. When you go back to your state, you're still going to want to have your Medicare. You're still going to have your property tax, cut, right? So I think that would really be the motivation.
Theresa, I got to get out of here. Let us know where we can catch you at Ratchet Politics, because there's another conversation you and I got to have. I got to get you back. I mean, look, I might need a co-host. One to sit in and do this thing for me when I'm sick, Lord.
I'm available. I'm available.
Where can we get you at?
So follow me on Instagram. Right now, that's where I am. YouTube coming soon. Instagram, Ratchet Politics, RATCHET Politics. On Instagram is where you can find me right now.
Thank you so much. Hey, look, Theresa, you are a Hassler. You are. My son's Greg Hassler. Shout out to him out there. Hey, look, thanks so much for being with us today. Look, folks, we've had a hell of a show. I'm going to get out of here. Catch Theresa Hassler at Ratchet Politics. She just laid down a law for us on the day. We got a whole lot of stuff going on. But let me go ahead and take a quick break, and I'll be back with just a second or two of closing thoughts. Thank you, Theresa.
Thanks, DC.
KUDZUKIAN.
So we're talking about actual harm against actual people.
Different episodes, you come up with a more surprising thing.
You just taking baby steps, talking about escapism and like, yo, I'm mad, but I'm tired.
Hello. It is a privilege and an honor to join you for this special ceremony.
I can't tell you how privileged and pleased I am to be a part of the most critical conversation of 2020.
Sickle cell disease from birth to childhood up. So thank you for joining us.
KUDZUKIAN. Check out all your KUDZUKIAN favorites now. Download the KUDZUKIAN app, available on Android and iOS.
Hey, this is DC. I'm back with you. My producers are gonna kick me out of here. They're gonna flog me here today. We went over a little bit, but let me tell you something here. When you have a interesting topic to talk about, and you got folks who just indeed are knowledgeable of what's going on in America and what's going on in our society with everything that's going on today in this COVID-19 piece and this pandemic and this social unrest here we have in our country and this systemic racism that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. I just got to let people have their say, and I've got to make sure we engage, and we got to make sure that you as our audience get a chance to listen to these thought leaders that we got in our country. Young ladies, Theresa is out of New York, from St. Louis, where Fred Sanford's from, but anyway, it was great to have on the show today. We got to stay together. In order to stay together, we have to be apart, right? So make sure you follow those CDC rules, social distancing. Hey, stay away from the big parties, right, folks? Just stay away from those big old things and wear your mask. I got to get out of here. See you next time right here on Funky Politics. I am DC, and I